Well, it coats the pots you cook with so the food doesn't stick. It protects the carpet your baby crawls on. You may also have it in your winter jacket, your skin lotion, even your makeup. We're talking about Teflon.
American production has become the most efficient in the world. And as a result, our factories and industrial plants are turning out an ever-increasing amount of goods. Things that people want and need.
DuPont research chemists developed a new and unique white substance.
The result is the greatest advance in cookware.
DuPont Teflon. Here are two different types of fry pans. This non-stick finish for cookware never needs scouring. All kinds of burned food come off quickly and easily.
Corn muffins don't stick to Teflon. Almost nothing sticks to it.
So look for the Teflon 2 quality seal.
Look for this seal.
Look for the seal.
Look for this sticker.
Well, it sounds great, but is it really safe to cook in?
These Teflon and Scotchgard chemicals permeated the living world. Today, every baby is born with Teflon chemicals in their blood.
C8 is one of the elements they need to make Teflon.
PFOS, PFOA, C8, these are all names for this group of miracle chemicals that came out of 3M initially and out of DuPont.
They are clearly aware of the risk of the product. Their own documents showed that this is a toxin. Their studies were showing rats dying, dogs dying, monkeys dying. They were seeing testicular tumors, liver disease, pancreatic disease.
Unfortunately, monkeys, even at the lowest dose, were dying after being exposed to PFOA.
And they know that these primate studies have a direct relationship to what we'll find in the human population. At one point, DuPont came out and said, if your drinking water is showing more than 1 part per billion of C8, then you better not drink the water. It's 1 drop of C8 in an Olympic-sized pool.
How high were your levels when they told you about your water?
They're supposed to be under 40 parts per trillion. Ours is 26,000.
26,000?
We didn't know it at the time, but the evidence showed that 3M and DuPont, they knew all about it.
That DuPont had knowingly poisoned us, they knew, and they went ahead and did it anyway.
So you're 3M in the 1940s. You've invented hundreds of new products over the years, but none of them have really taken you to the stratosphere. You're looking for that one breakthrough product, the one thing that's gonna change everything for you. And that's when you discovered something big. A chemical called perfluoric octanoic acid, or PFOA, also known simply as C8. And C8 was special. It was non-stick, heat retardant. It was water resistant, which meant that this single chemical that you discovered was gonna change consumer goods forever.
Some people use a little oil or butter when they cook so that things don't stick to the pan. But I use polytetrafluoroethylene.
Some sports call it non-stick for short. Now that's cooking.
So you supplied your C8 to DuPont, another chemical company, and they use your C8 to make Teflon, a new wonder material that was put into everything people buy. Everything from pots and pans to fire extinguishers, waterproof clothes, furniture, takeout containers, pizza boxes, carpets, electronics, and even dental floss. All of this contains some sort of Teflon, and that Teflon was made using C8. Basically, you were able to get your grubby little fingers into almost every single product people interact with on a daily basis, which meant you became insanely rich. But there was just one small teeny tiny problem. C8 and all the other chemicals you made like it are extremely toxic. We're talking like cancer-causing birth defects toxic.
I was originally born with just one nostril, limited vision in my right eye.
Bucky Bailey's mother worked in the DuPont chemical plant in 1980 in Parkersville, West Virginia, making Teflon, the non-stick surface for pots and pans. What Bucky's mother didn't know at the time was that she was exposed to a chemical known as PFOA.
She was working directly with the chemical while she was pregnant with me. The doctors, they were just completely scared. They said, don't get your hopes up. He won't make it through the night.
And you said your mom is now suffering illnesses herself.
She is. She has thyroid disease, which is linked to the chemical. Chemical exposure, yes.
Which meant that if anyone found out about just how toxic C8 was, your breakthrough product, your ace in the hole, would be no more. Lawsuits would come pouring in. The billions would stop flowing. So you were left with only one logical option. Intentionally hide it from the public. Suppress your findings about C8s. You want to make your billions first, then worry about the consequences later. By then, you'll have so much money and power that a few lawsuits here and there won't even matter. Today, we finally know that C8 is linked to all sorts of diseases, like kidney cancer, thyroid disease, testicular cancer, and a whole host of other terrible things. But it's too late, because 99.7% of Americans already have C8 in their bloodstream.
They are found in every one of you.
Prior to 1977, perfluorinated materials had been found in human blood.
At first, 3M and DuPont were checking to see the contamination levels of their workers. And so naturally, they needed to compare those workers' blood levels of C8 with the population so they could see what the difference was. So they started going to archived blood supplies and checking to see what clean blood versus the blood of their workers might look like. There was no clean blood. They tested kids, they tested adults, they went to Asia, they went all over the world, and everywhere they looked practically, they found their chemicals in people's blood. Eventually, they did find some clean blood. It turned out it was the blood that had been taken from Army recruits and archived, saved, at the start of the Korean War. That blood was clean because the Teflon chemicals weren't out into the environment at that point.
Yes, you watching this right now probably have this forever chemical in your body, and there's nothing you can do to get it out. While 3M, by poisoning the world forever, 3M is now one of the largest, most powerful conglomerates in the world, and they barely even got a slap on the wrist for it.
They called this fluorine chemical the devil's piss. It was so potent.
Sunlight doesn't break them down. Microbes don't break them down. Heat doesn't break them down. Nothing breaks them down.
A lot of chemicals, when they go into your body or when they end up in the environment, they break down, they slowly decompose. PFAS don't do that. Once you put PFAS somewhere, it's going to stay there practically forever. They are nearly indestructible.
If you've been hurt by a big corporation like 3M, you gotta sue them. Because as you're gonna see later in this video, they have more than enough money to pay you. But the problem is, lawsuits cost a lot of money. But luckily, that is where this law firm called Morgan & Morgan comes in. Morgan & Morgan is a law firm that actually just won a giant case against 3M recently. What's special about Morgan & Morgan is that you only pay if they win your case. That's right, you can have America's largest injury law firm fighting for you for $0 out of pocket. And they've got over 800 expert lawyers in almost every practice area imaginable, from class actions to defective products, data breaches, workplace discrimination, all the way to personal injury cases with 100+ offices nationwide. So however you've been injured, whether it be by a big corporation like 3M or in a car accident, Morgan & Morgan can help. But because they only get paid if they win, they do have to be selective about the cases they bring on. So if you want to find out if they can take your case, all you have to do is pause the video, scroll down, and click the link below to go to forthepeople.com/JakeTran. There you'll be able to submit your claim in as little as 8 clicks or less without ever leaving your couch. So pause the video, scroll down, and click the link below to go to forthepeople.com/JakeTran to submit your case now. Thanks to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring this video. In 1902, 5 businessmen founded the Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company, or 3M for short. Originally, 3M was supposed to be a mining company, but the land they were gonna mine turned out to have zero potential at all. It was your first big mistake. The first of many for a company that would eventually become known for being built on mistakes. But this was the early 1900s. It was the age of innovation. Everyone was inventing new and useful stuff like vacuum cleaners, neon lights, plastic, and even tea bags. In fact, most of the modern conveniences we enjoy today were being created during this time, and you wanted in. So you gave up on your mining operation and set up shop as a research company. And the first thing you produced? Sandpaper, out of all things. Around the same time, a guy named William McKnight started working for your company as an assistant bookkeeper. And this would-be bookkeeper would end up changing your company forever. In his first few years, McKnight flew up the ranks. He became a general manager of 3M, and that's where the big changes started. 3M's second biggest mistake was leaking olive oil onto almost all the sandpaper and inadvertently still selling it to customers. When people started getting angry about finding olive oil on their sandpaper, it gave McKnight an idea. Sandpaper that could be used either wet or dry, and he ran with it. With the help of an outside engineer, you as 3M started selling wet or dry sandpaper in 1921. It was your first successful product and it made you hungry for more. After the sandpaper breakthrough, making mistakes became company policy. According to a 3M executive back then,
every idea should have a chance to prove its worth. If it is good, we want it. And if it is not good, we will have purchased peace of mind when we have proved it impractical.
Next on your list of inventions was Scotch tape, which was first used to paint two-tone cars. It had to be strong enough to stick to the car, but not so strong that it pulled paint off the body, and Scotch tape became another big success. Post-it notes, reflective signs, and a dozen other inventions quickly followed. But nothing really made you stand out. Everyone everywhere was inventing stuff, so you weren't exactly special or better than the rest. What you really wanted was to create an invention so useful, so valuable, that it would be used in everything. And you finally got that chance in 1947. In 1938, a doctor named Roy Plunkett accidentally discovered Teflon, and it changed the world forever. Teflon was non-stick, waterproof, and could take a lot of heat, which made it useful for a lot of things. But there was just one problem. Dr. Plunkett made this discovery working for DuPont at the time, not you. And in 1947, DuPont was much bigger, richer, and better known than you ever were. There was no way you could ever compete with them. But you didn't give up. See, creating Teflon is not an easy process. It takes a lot of very specific, difficult to produce chemicals. And that is where you saw your chance. See, if you could mass produce the chemicals needed to make Teflon before DuPont could, instead of competing with DuPont, you could make billions working alongside DuPont, supplying them with the ingredients they needed for their best-selling products. So your scientists got to work, and in 1947, you officially discovered this. Also known as PFOA or C8. PFOA was just one of a whole bunch of forever chemicals that you managed to create, but it was the only one that really mattered. Because by 1951, DuPont was buying truckloads of C8 from you to produce all its Teflon products.
Good thing it's Teflon.
DuPont Teflon!
DuPont.
C8 changed everything for 3M. You became a multi-million-dollar company selling one of the most sought-after chemicals on the planet. But then just a few years after creating C8, your scientists made a horrifying discovery. A discovery that you had to suppress at all costs. By the 1960s, C8 was everywhere. It was this new wonder chemical that no one could get enough of. But there was just one problem. Producing C8 in Teflon created a lot of C8 waste that you needed to get rid of somewhere, but properly disposing of a harsh chemical like C8 is expensive. So DuPont just dumped it into rivers and unprotected landfills. After all, there was no proof at the time that C8 was harmful to anyone. People were literally using it to cook their food. How could it ever be toxic? But as soon as you heard that DuPont was dumping C8 into the environment, you had your suspicions. Sure, there was no proof at the moment that C8 was toxic, but that's because no one ever ran any tests to see if C8 was harmful. In the back of your mind, you knew that dumping C8 into the environment was probably gonna spell trouble, but the money was just too good. So you just turned a blind eye. No need to investigate. So for the next decade, you said nothing and did nothing, while hundreds of thousands of pounds of C8 was being dumped into the earth. It didn't matter that around the same time DuPont was secretly running experiments on the effects of C8 and found that it caused all sorts of defects in rats, rabbits, and dogs, but luckily DuPont was on the same boat as you, and also kept their mouths shut. For more than a decade after your first suspicions, it was business as usual. So C8 and Teflon kept seeping into every aspect of our lives, from the clothes we wear to the things we eat with. But as the years went on, your curiosity got the better of you. The bigger your company grew, the more you realized that you needed to know the truth before someone else figured it out. That way, if your little secret ever got exposed, you would at least know enough to do some damage control. So by the early 1970s, you secretly tasked a group of scientists to start running tests on fish found in a river contaminated with C8, and what you found was absolutely terrifying. C8 wasn't just getting into the fish and damaging their health, but C8 was accumulating in the fish. In other words, unlike other toxic chemicals, C8 wasn't breaking down once it entered their bodies. It kinda just stayed there, becoming more and more concentrated over time, and it only got worse from there. Around the same time you were testing riverfish, internal documents from both 3M and DuPont showed that you guys knew C8 was highly toxic when inhaled and moderately toxic when ingested by as early as 1970. But you were in too deep by now. Teflon products have found themselves in every single household in America. It has spread all over the world already.
It was used in airplanes and cars, on and on. The applications were endless.
I found that these chemicals could bond to paper products to make food wraps, greaseproof wraps, cookie bags.
So if the world found out now, you would be sued into oblivion. So you did the only thing you could think of. You buried the evidence. When DuPont employees started having miscarriages or babies with birth defects, you and DuPont kept quiet about it, while quietly moving the female employees of childbearing age away from C8 exposure. Exposure to C8 also increased the size of the liver in rats, rabbits, and dogs. And if it had this effect on animals, who knows what kind of effect it was causing on humans? Then 3M found that PFOAs cause birth defects in rats. You share this finding with DuPont, they took a look at their pregnant employees, and what did they find? 2 out of 7 babies were born with eye defects. And from there, the findings just got worse and worse and worse. But all you could do was keep suppressing it. You even went so far as to pay respected university professors to write papers saying C8 was not toxic. You also blocked any papers that mentioned C8 in a negative light from ever being published. And even when your own employees started getting sick and developing cancer, you said nothing. But deep down, you knew this game couldn't go on forever. And by the 1990s, your time finally came. Independent scientists started publishing reports on the possible toxic effects of C8s, and you decided that now was the time to get out while you still could. In the year 2000, you pretended that you had just found out about how bad C8 was, and you handed over the hundreds of studies you had done on C8, while also publicly announcing that you would stop producing forever chemicals for good. You looked like the good guy coming clean as soon as you found out the bad news, and it worked. It worked so well that even the EPA got fooled, saying that 3M deserves great credit for identifying this problem and coming forward voluntarily. Sure, you had known about the harmful effects of C8 for more than 25 years, but no one else needed to know that. In the eyes of the world, you were the honest, caring whistleblower who risked your own profits to tell the truth. So who did the EPA ended up blaming? Why, your old pal DuPont, of course. You came forward and threw DuPont under the bus, and as a result, DuPont got publicly smeared, they were made public enemy number 1, while 3M, you never even really got mentioned in the C8 lawsuits as more than a footnote. It was a brilliant move. You had spent decades making billions selling toxic chemicals to the world, and here you were walking away blame-free. After you dropped C8, you could have gone clean. You could have kept on the straight and narrow. But old habits die hard, and it didn't take long for you to get involved in yet another cover-up, a cover-up that threatened to undo everything you got away with. In 2008, 3M bought out a military supply company called Aero Technologies. One of the products Aero Technologies produced were double-ended earplugs soldiers could use to protect their hearing while shooting. But there was just one small problem. You knew the earplugs you were selling were defective. They couldn't really protect soldiers the way you advertised. But what was one more lie to the public really gonna do? Come on, you got away with literally poisoning the entire world. There was no way a couple of defective earplugs could make it any worse, or so you thought. Within months, soldiers started reporting hearing loss and other problems that earplugs were supposed to prevent. But unlike the effects of C8s, a soldier becoming deaf can easily be linked to the earplugs they were using, which meant that you were screwed. In 2018, you had to pay $9.1 million to settle the lawsuits the soldiers brought against you, which is literally chump change for you. And for a second, you thought that you had gotten away with it. But you overlooked one small detail. After C8, you were supposed to stay under the radar to avoid making waves, but this earplug scandal was the exact opposite. Suddenly, everyone's eyes were on this unpatriotic company that was knowingly selling our American warriors defective equipment, and that opened up the floodgates. Suddenly, people started digging up all the old 3M reports on C8 and started seeing all the lies you had been telling the public over the years. And by June 2023, the first of 4,000 pending lawsuits against 3M started in South Carolina. It accuses 3M of allowing forever chemicals it knew were toxic to leak into municipal water supplies. If this lawsuit succeeded, it would have cost 3M up to $143 billion in cleanup costs alone, almost triple its worth. But in reality, 3M ended up settling for just $12.5 billion, which they'll make back after just 2 years of profit. Just 2 years of profit in exchange for poisoning the entire world. But this is progress, because as we've mentioned, this is just one of those 4,000 lawsuits. And guess what? The attorneys behind this settlement are from Morgan & Morgan, today's video sponsor. And if Morgan & Morgan can take on 3M, they can probably take on your case too. Imagine what they can do for you if you've been hurt by a big corporation, or even a car accident, for example. Luckily, Morgan & Morgan will not charge you a dime unless they win your case. But you gotta reach out to them, which is super easy. All you gotta do is scroll down, click the link below to go to forthepeople.com/JakeTran, and you'll be able to submit a claim in 8 clicks or less without ever having to leave your couch. So click the link below to go to forthepeople.com/JakeTran to start your claim now. Thanks to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring this video. But you want to know what's even sketchier than 3M? The food pyramid. Ah yes, you know the food pyramid. Well, as it turns out, the food they put on the food pyramid was never about your health. No, it was about who bribed the government with the most money. But I think the more kosher term is called lobbying. Ah yes, America's food pyramid was simply sold to the highest bidder. Why else do you think cereal, out of all things, is such a big part of the pyramid? When John Kellogg literally designed cornflakes to kill your sex drive. And we expose it all in our new documentary on our new channel, Evil Food Supply, that you can watch by clicking the card on the screen right now. Because as we always say, health is not wealth, health is the only thing you've got. And big food and big government seem to be trying their damnedest to keep you fat and addicted. So click the card on the screen to watch our documentary on the food pyramid now.